With no PSX this year and no real conviction from anyone that we might see an announcement at any gaming events in the near future, it feels like we're in something of a lull as regards hype for The Last of Us Part 2. My little video here won't make a difference, but this moderate hype hiatus is an opportunity to talk about something, and it comes from what was really a throwaway comment during a recent live stream. Hello my infected friends and welcome! Okay then, I have made a couple of videos about the sequel, but I've always tried to avoid speculation about where the story might go. As I've said before, get the speculation right and you spoil the surprise for yourself and everyone who's heard it. Get it wrong and you look like a bit of an idiot. So that's a route I won't take. However, I think it's perfectly fair to consider parts of the original game which simply cannot be ignored because they must have consequences. Part 2 is a continuation of the story of Ellie and Joel, and to make sense it will have to address the elephant in the room. We all know what that is.
We found the fireflies. Turns out there's a whole lot more like you, Ellie. People that are immune. There's dozens, actually. Ain't done them a damn bit of good, neither. They've stopped looking for a cure. I'm taking us home. Sorry.
I'm unlikely to change my mind about what I consider to be the best performed cutscene dialogue in the game. It's Joel and Tommy's talk just before the compound comes under attack. But Joel's lie in both script and vocal delivery from Troy Baker may just be the cleverest. You see, I have to put the word lie in, well, air quotes. The thing is, everybody thinks of it that way, from the one-off player to those who have played and or watched the game hundreds of times, maybe looking for those little details they might have missed. Even Neil Druckmann called it a lie in his keynote speech. But of course, he may want us to hear that because it's what we already believe. That sits perfectly with someone who is keen to surprise us, which, let's face it, Naughty Dog does time and again. From our perspective, Joel's lie would seem to be the inevitable driving force behind how his relationship might be with Ellie as we follow their journey through the sequel. Suggestions have ranged from the extreme, or should I say extremely ridiculous, namely that Ellie might kill Joel, to the polar opposite, that she will simply accept it on the basis that their bond is too powerful to be broken because of something Joel felt compelled to do to save and protect her. For me, well, it could all be something of a, well, not so much the elephant in the room, but maybe more akin to a white elephant, an irrelevance. Because let's think about this. Did Joel lie? Let's take it line by line.
We found the fireflies.
If you want to be really pedantic, you could say the fireflies found Ellie and Joel, but come on, found and came into contact with are pretty much the same thing. It certainly isn't a lie. Let's just say they found each other, okay?
Turns out there's a whole lot more like you, Ellie. People that are immune. There's dozens, actually.
We do know the fireflies, as well as those employed by the erstwhile government, spent fruitless years trying to create a vaccine from presumably live subjects. We have to assume some were or claimed to be immune. From the various clinical artifacts we collect throughout the game, we can also see that Joel is simply stating what he believes to be true. And what he says is generally true if we take it as being based on his understanding. Remember, the surgeon's recording is not delivered in layman's terms, cytokines instead of immunity proteins, or prodrome instead of symptom. You get the idea. And Joel has no reason to believe Ellie is truly unique, because he has no reason to believe Marlene.
There is no other choice here. that bullshit.
As far as Joel is concerned, Ellie would just be the latest in a long line of failed attempts.
Ain't done him a damn bit of good neither.
Well, let's think about this. Marlene's obsession with finding a cure borders on the evangelical, but while we can understand the apparent enthusiasm in the surgeon's recording at the hospital, the same cannot be said for those who ultimately abandoned the university in Boulder. They were utterly demoralised, and one went as far as describing their endeavours as a giant waste of time. There must have been many previous occasions when they thought they'd found the one. The Fireflies were not established with the aim of finding a vaccine, they just wanted to restore government. And in that campaign, Marlene was only too aware that their methods were often compared to terrorism, so they lacked universal support. But in any case, they are coming off a very poor second best to the military. Apart from the doctors, how many of the Fireflies, the troops, do we believe are genuinely enthusiastic about creating a vaccine? How many of them even know about it? Joel gives Ellie a very good piece of advice quite early in the game.
Don't tell anybody about your condition. They think you're crazy, they'll try to kill you.
More to the point, knowledge of Ellie's immunity would make her the ultimate bargaining chip for anyone who wanted to exploit it, and Marlene knows this. The few Firefly notes we find concerning Ellie's transportation give almost no details about her, not even her name, just instructions to get her from A to B and a rough idea of what she looks like. For all we know, perhaps only a handful of Firefly soldiers at the hospital have even a vague idea about what makes her valuable. Joel is almost certainly right. The whole vaccine idea was very much Marlene's fixation, and with her out of the way, it's very hard to imagine the Fireflies devoting their resources to it. They have enough on their hands battling the military. Put it this way, how many of them would readily link arms in unity if Marlene survived and said, okay, this one didn't work, let's find another? Especially given that, as she admits to Joel, she lost most of her crew crossing the country. Of course, we can debate whether or not they would carry on, but my point here is that as far as Joel is concerned, this vaccine thing was all about Marlene. It's very likely he genuinely believes they won't continue. I'd call that more of an assumption than a lie. So what we're left with is not a lie as such. At worst, it's a case of, to the best of my knowledge, even if some of that knowledge is a little incomplete. Why then do we so readily jump on Joel's words and recoil at their apparent dishonesty? For me, it's a combination of great writing and great human observation. In Joel's mind, he is telling the truth, but he can't drag his thoughts away from his killing of Marlene, and we see that. As much as he may have despised her, and with reason she told Ethan to kill him if he put up any resistance, he knows she and Ellie had some kind of bond, even if it was nowhere near as close as Marlene would have him believe. So even if he was right to kill her, it doesn't stop him feeling guilty about removing this person who was a part of Ellie's life. And with that going on in his head, this distraction, he wouldn't be able to answer Ellie's question about what happened with clarity or conviction. It would sound questionable, and we feed off that. To us, it sounds like he's lying, so we assume he is lying. But in reality, no, not really. So what might this say about part 2? While some people were saying Joel's lie could be the cause of a significant, perhaps even deadly, rift between himself and Ellie, I'd suggested in an earlier video that it was something which could, indeed should, be addressed very early in the game. I'd proposed that when Joel explained what he had saved her from, namely the Fireflies taking her life without Marlene even having the decency to talk to her, Ellie would fully understand his actions. I'd even gone as far as suggesting the reference to her finding and killing every last one of them was almost certainly about the Fireflies, given what they had intended to do. Now, I'm not so sure. I don't even think the lie needs to be dealt with at all, because I don't believe there was one. Instead, Joel might, at some point, have to explain the death of Marlene and why it happened, which is not the same as coming clean about a lie. And I say might because Ellie has no idea Marlene had travelled to Salt Lake City. If Joel's actions are revealed, it could be because the Fireflies tracked them to North Teton, or Teton, however you say it, and she learns the truth from them. That may be the point where Joel explains what he did. Now, what effect this has on Ellie is something we can't know until the sequel releases. All we know for now is that Jesse's reference to Joel in the last teaser gameplay video elicited a kind of holding back words expression on Ellie's face, but that may not tell us much. It could be insignificant. We'll just have to wait and see. But remember, Ellie's bond with Marlene could be summed up by her kind of non-committal, she's my friend, I guess, back in Boston. And here's something else to consider. As they reach Redmond, Ellie asks Joel why he doesn't just take her back to Marlene. It could be that this is a gentle test of his commitment to her. Remember, we're only a few minutes away from her barely concealed disappointment when Joel tells her that Tommy would know where to take her. And of course, we all know what happens when Tommy agrees to Joel's plan. Once we reach Salt Lake City, a year has passed and we're many thousands of miles away, not just from Boston, but as far as Ellie is aware, Marlene. To a 14 or 15-year-old, 1 year is a long, long time. And after that year, is she missing Marlene in any way? Well, she tells Joel that when it's all over at the hospital, they can go wherever he wants. So she clearly has no great desire to find Marlene again. Remember, Marlene wasn't family. By now, she might be a gradually fading memory, or at least consigned to her past. And if, or when, Joel reveals that Marlene was intent on killing the girl whose attitude to life seems to have been encapsulated in endure and survive, and who was looking forward to continuing that life after giving a blood sample, well, I can't imagine Ellie going into any long period of mourning. So that's it. Joel's killing of Marlene might bring he and Ellie into temporary conflict, or it might not. But his story about what happened at the hospital is close enough to the truth to bear all but the tightest scrutiny. To my mind, he pretty much told it how it was, and at worst, his assertion that the Fireflies had stopped looking for a cure was a best guess, and it may well be true. In this regard, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say he simply jumped to a conclusion. But if we're going to apply a question mark to anything he said to Ellie as they escaped Salt Lake City, it is only that, nothing more. To call it a lie is a case of us jumping to a conclusion, and in doing so, allowing ourselves to be influenced by the prominent thought, Marlene's death, and the distraction it caused in Joel's mind at the time. So what do you guys think? Please let me know in the comments. Okay, I'm done here. Thank you for watching, everybody. It's time for me to go. Until next time, bye.